What's happening, everybody? It's your big homie Doe checking in one time for the one time, back with another episode of Donuts with Doe. And on today's episode, I have someone that's just out here doing her thing. Look, don't ask her what she do. Just check in and see what she does. That's all you got to do is follow her. Tonight, I have on the podcast Erinn Knight.
Yo, thank you so much for having me.
Give it up for Erinn Knight. Look, I wish I had some little, audience in the background.
Or like at least the clap track. Yeah.
There we go. But Erinn,
thank you for having me. I'm delighted. I know you had to fit me in because I'm so in and out, and then I was running late with the client. I'm just grateful for you because I think what you're doing is tight, and I love podcasts, and I like the name. The branding is super cool.
Man, I appreciate that. Look. Boy, look at that boy getting his flowers.
For sure. I got to give him as soon as I come in.
Yeah, man. But let's just dive right into it. I know that you're an Atlanta native.
You know what I'm saying? I'm an ATLian. You see that? I got a flying saucer.
Okay.
Peace up, A-Town down, ATLian for real.
Now, I got to ask this because who was that? Amaretta, what's the old girl name?
Yeah, Amaretta.
You know where I'm going.
For sure. I do know where you're going.
So, are you from Atlanta? Or are you from...
So, here's the thing. I can't even validate that with an answer because Amaretta is not from Atlanta. So it's and there's shots so many, fired. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't even have to look this up. I'm confident, I'm sure if you look it up right now, she's not from Atlanta, because the thing about Atlanta is we claim ours. We're not united. You know what I'm saying? That's not in our nature. So the whole nature of the song is an anti-Atlanta energy. So I know she's not from Atlanta. And then also because of the way she pronounces her name, if she was from Atlanta, it wouldn't be Amaretta. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like Amaretta. You know what I'm saying? There's just it would have been a different type of flow, even the way, she's shout out to her rapping, whatever. But respectfully, if you stake your claim in the industry off of dissing somebody, it only works in cities with that type of energy works. You know what I'm saying? Atlanta is not one of those cities. We respect people, we love people, but I'm from the South Side. Okay. I'm inside the perimeter. So Atlanta is broken up, like most cities, by their interstates. We got zones and people rep their zones, but a lot of times people just rep the side of their city they're from. So it's east side, north side, west side, south side. I don't really mess with the north side at all. And most of unless you're north, which is where the Migos are from. They're from Gwinnett. If Migos can claim Atlanta, Gwinnett is way shout out to, but I'm saying
about GC.
But they're us, right? Ain't nobody, and it's not just because they're famous. If you say you from Atlanta, some people may be I just say most ATLians for real would be what side? I'm from Atlanta. I'm oh, what side? If you don't know how to answer that question, you're not from Atlanta. So if you say, where you from? I'm I'm from Atlanta. They was word? What side? I'm south side. And then immediately it's do.
Right.
But I'm from Riverdale. So yeah.
Okay, Riverdale.
I'm still inside the perimeter.
I'm trying to think of...
because there's ITP and OTP. If you're outside the perimeter, technically you're not in Atlanta. So people don't consider that. But if you're talking about the city of Atlanta itself, there's less than 4 million people inside the city of Atlanta currently, and this is the biggest that it's ever been. So if people say you got to be from the actual city of Atlanta to be considered the city, especially when there's so many suburbs and townships in Atlanta, then I'm not rocking with you because you're trying to be technical on some stuff that's going to divide us instead of unite us. You're not an ATLian. We all about the unity twin. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. See, look, yeah, that's for all y'all people that be man, you in Murfreesboro. But no,
Nashville's different, but shout out to y'all. And Murfreesboro is...
Look, I'm just trying to make sure,
and then even Nashville,
I'm included here.
Nashville's so different because I live on the south side here too. And it's I didn't realize my address is Nashville proper. The distance I am from downtown Nashville to my house is the same distance as the house my parents have on the south side of Atlanta. That's a mile from the house that I grew up in. It's equidistant to the city of Atlanta, but it's a completely different. Now it's Fayette County, but it was unincorporated Fayette County, Riverdale, whatever. So it's for me, if Nashville could do it, you know what I'm saying? It's like if we're talking
Yeah.
about distance, because I'm like I grew up right by the airport. So it's like if you could fly into the city of Atlanta, airport isn't in Atlanta.
Right.
If we're being technical, it's in
Right,
College
right.
Park. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like when people start getting technical, I'm like, beloved, let's not do this because I will eat you alive on Atlanta-ness. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
right,
you want
right.
to try to discredit me because I wasn't born in the city limits. That's okay, but shout
You
out to Atlanta.
you wasn't born in Grady.
Yeah, my dad was though. Shout out to that. But yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to be born in Grady. Respectfully, respect.
Right. Nah. I watch a lot of 85 South, so
Okay, for sure. Yeah,
I'll be,
yeah.
watching DC Young Fly act a damn fool. But anyway,
No, that's the guy. Shout out to DC. He's one of the few people I've ever met that I was actually like, yo, let me get a picture. You know what I'm saying? Like I was out because he's very Atlanta to me, and he represents the energy and the culture of Atlanta, and he has the vibe of Atlanta. He was like, yeah, what's up? You know what I'm saying?
so growing up in Atlanta, we talking 90s, 2000s.
For sure.
What influenced a young Erinn back in those days, growing up in Atlanta on the South Side?
On the South
That's
Side.
what part of town I'm from. In my little city, from the South Side.
Where you from?
I am from Paducah, Kentucky.
I've heard of Paducah.
Yeah, you go.
A lot of people talk about Paducah.
Yeah, I mean,
And I hear y'all have good food out there.
Yeah, of course.
Like a bunch of hole-in-the-wall spots.
Look at me, I'm big back. Anyway,
For sure. Yeah, like good Southern food. That's what I've heard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Okay. Shout out to that. What influenced me?
Yeah.
Man. So the misconception about Atlanta is that it's all like hip hop and hood shit. Can I curse? My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Look,
Okay. I'm gonna try not to drop any F-bombs.
see all this gray in my hair. This a grown folk podcast.
No,
Like,
for sure. I just want to respect it, and I don't know what your monetization setup is or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like my mom loves but hates watching my interviews because I curse, and I be trying to respect Regina. Love you, Mom. Hopefully you watch this. So like, let me cut it back for my mom. And
we'll make it good for Miss Regina.
yeah, there you go.
we-
Yeah.
Okay,
Facts.
cool.
So people think that Atlanta is this just like it is a black utopia for sure. It's Wakanda forever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like it's super black. I mean, there's all sorts of races there. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up with a good amount of Latino people. I grew up in my schools were pretty white, right? Because I'm on the south side, but Atlanta is like one street is a suburb, the next street is the hood. I didn't grow up in the hood though. I grew up middle class American, went to private schools first, and then my parents took me out of private school because the public schools in our area were so good. They were like rivaling like the credibility and like, you know, we just had a lot of like D1 athletes and like scholars at our schools. So my parents were like, why are we paying for private school when you could get the same education publicly? But it was a good experience for me because my mom homeschooled us, you know, like kindergarten, and then we had to test to see if we were up to standard to be in the first grade. But yeah, like I had a really I grew up down the street from like country clubs and stuff. So I like grew up like riding on golf carts, but also like, again, next street over, super black stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I like learned like what makes drug dealers so compelling and like how they're able to maneuver through life because they were always the nicest people I ever met. I never knew they were drug dealers. That was the thing at first. But then you just be like, man, it's so dope. Like he's always looking out for us. And then, you know, you hear like, yeah, he's a drug dealer. Like, no way. You know what I'm saying?
He just got locked up.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the ones never did. They were good, like good at what they were doing. So and then my parents are pastors, right? But my dad worked for the FAA, so he had a full-time job still. So like I grew up flying and like wanting to get my pilot's license. Yeah, like my dad used to take us to the driving range, but they were also pastors in like a pretty black area. So like, you know, it's like going to my auntie's house and like watching Martin. So I had like a very like super diverse childhood. My mom's from Indianapolis, so she was super yeah, for sure. She's super intentional about us like pronouncing our words and not having like a Southern drawl. So for years, people didn't know I was from the South, but I think that's just because people misunderstood what an Atlanta accent was. They thought it was like a Georgia accent. Atlanta is not Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Like when people say, "Oh, you're from Georgia," I'm like, "No, beloved, I'm from Atlanta." It's a whole different thing.
It's an old Comic View joke. Dude said, I ain't from no damn Georgia. I'm
Facts.
from Atlanta.
Correct.
And you just
correct.
You just brought that.
That's why we're
joke to life.
AT aliens. You know what I'm saying? Like
Wow.
we're not from here. Like Atlanta's its own world, especially if you embrace it. So yeah, like my mom's from Indianapolis. Her brother was like an artist, like a painter. You know what I'm saying? So like especially when I was in high school, he came down to move in with us, and he was like exhibiting like in the museums. The first artist that I ever knew in the High Museum. I'm a member of that museum still. I love museums. I'm like, as they say, an art hoe on TikTok now. But my brother, like they have a high school, like you know how the Frist has like the community gallery.
Yes.
So in Atlanta, the High Museum has similar. And like when I was probably 12 or 13, they put up some of my brother's art in the High Museum, which is like the most prestigious museum in Atlanta. So it's like I grew up being like just everything felt pretty attainable to me. You know, like they'd have those posters up on the wall. It's like, you can do anything, you can be anything. Like I believed it. Like right. I never was like, well, let me have a backup plan. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. It was just kind of like, oh, I can do anything. Like, okay, you know?
Well, I guess with being in Atlanta, there's a lot of representation. Like
for sure.
You're going
the first two millionaires I knew were black. One of them being my uncle.
So that's a whole different level of inspiration in itself. It's like if you're seeing, you know, yourself as a millionaire. I mean, if you had people around you and you can see yourself as a millionaire. So that's a whole different aspect when it comes to just being able to see it, obtain it, and, you know, going for it.
For sure. And then even like black women, like now statistically it's understood that black women start the most businesses in America. But it's like when I was there, like my godmom, she did my hair, right? Like, so she owned that. And then like just seeing so many different people have businesses. I also grew up around people who were like married and stayed with their kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, and this is not coming against, like, I know people's experience, like there's a lot of like single family homes. There's people grow up, you know, in rough situations. And I'm not saying my situation was better or worse than theirs, but I'm just saying like my perspective was not the quintessential black experience that they showed on TV. Like I grew up in a loving community of hella people's houses that I was bouncing around to, again, because my parents were pastors. Yeah, and again, like I had a ton of childhood trauma. I'm not saying I didn't escape from it. Like I had, you know, but there's like different issues I was dealing with, you know what I'm saying? And then even like finding my voice as a black woman, because there's a moment of assimilation when you're like in middle school and high school where you want to be seen as like the best and the brightest. Like who doesn't, right? So I was like, yeah, I think I wasn't as confident as a black human. I was just like, oh, well, I'm good at this thing. And like, let me kind of assimilate into the predominant culture so that people feel this way. So it wasn't until I was like 18 or 19. So I really started like finding my blackness, so to speak. But I had a super tight upbringing, you know what I'm saying? Like people that my parents knew, like I grew up riding horses and golf carts and my brothers had
ATVs, stuff like
not
that.
quite ATVs because my mom hated it, but yeah, they had the little, what are the little dirt bikes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My dad has been a lifelong biker, so like he's always had a Harley Davidson and a truck, you know what I'm saying? But like he also cut the firewood that we would burn in our fireplace. You know, so I grew up playing basketball with my brothers and I had to learn how to cut the grass. You know, like I had a tight childhood. Like I'm blessed, but I was influenced by a lot. Like grew up my favorite band being Paramore, right? Okay. But also like Outkast having a massive influence on me. So I just had like a really expansive, like I was exposed to just a ton of stuff, and my parents would take us on vacation every year. Like we didn't have a ton of money when I was first coming up, so they would pack sandwiches and we'd drive the minivan down to Florida and we'd stay in a friend's timeshare or whatever, and my mom would cook. But my mom was like super, because her and my dad both grew up really poor, and they're both one of 8 kids. So they were both my mom was super intentional about being like, I'm gonna give my kids experiences. So she would clip coupons, and then she would take me to the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra on Sundays to the matinee. She would always take me to see the Nutcracker, the ballet. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then like my neighbors down the street, like he was a basketball coach, so they would always take us to like Hawks practice games because none of us could afford like the actual games, but we could go watch them practice. So yeah, I grew up like not saying money, because money wasn't not an object. We didn't have a ton, but it wasn't like we were bootstrapping, but I always felt like there were so many options to experience the beauty of the world. Like even just going outside. My mom was the type of mom who would lock the door and sit some water on the porch and be like, y'all can't come back in. Or if you come in, you stay in. So we just stay outside. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So being a PK, as they call it, did you experience any shelter? Like, did you?
For sure. What? Regina didn't want me to see or do anything.
Wow.
What? Yes, for sure.
So,
and I'm the only girl, so it was a wrap.
So did that push you to explore more?
That's exactly what it did. And I learned how to lie really fast.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I was such a good liar. I had to be delivered because I used to lie. Ooh, I could lie. I could lie and you couldn't even tell. What? Yes. I was super curious. Super
you just don't sit there and lie with a straight face?
Yeah.
Shout out to Doris.
And my mom, she would just know. God would be telling her. My mom used to tear me up. Oh my God, I used to get spanked so much. Kids these days, y'all lucky. I used to get spanked.
You hear that?
Spanked.
Shout out to Jaden over in the corner. You can't see him, but yeah.
I used to
get
spanked. My mom had this paddle that was, it was so wild. Her friend gave it to her in the shape of a hand down. So then, like, it's crazy. So before my parents started a church, they were like associate pastors at another church, and that church, it was not black folks, right? So it was a multiracial church, but still like 20 to 30% black versus my parents started, black church. That's just what happens. You know what I'm saying? Black pastor, you end up in a black church. But yeah, we used to get spanked. Like my mom had paddles that would just hang beside the refrigerator just as a reminder.
With your name on it.
Yeah, just as a reminder, boy. And my mom used to do the delay because my mom, she would never hit us in public or whatever. Like she would call our name or she'd be like, come over here. But then she'd be like, you getting spanked when you get home. Boy, that used to be the worst because I knew she was never going to forget. And she never forgot. Oh my God. And then, that delayed beating, it just ruined your whole day because you just there.
You chilling. She done forgot.
No,
I'm going here and make me a sandwich.
I think I was 5 or 6
and
I thought that we didn't even get all that. When I was 5 or 6, I thought she had forgotten because I had ate a piece of candy at the store and, it was just like out, like scary. Like I could have got sick. And my mom, I thought she forgot. We got home. She unpacked all the groceries, whatever, cooked for my brothers. And then she was like, Erinn, come up to your room. I was like, oh, Lord. And then she prayed for me. She was like, Lord, I pray that Erinn doesn't get sick from this. My mom is a nurturing human. And then she was like, all right, turn over.
Oh, dang,
tore me up.
Pray and lay? She
would pray for us every time. And then when we got older, she would ask us to pray with her. She'd be like, okay, you need to repent. Like you sinned. Like, you know what I'm saying? My mom was like, yeah, my mom, shout out to Regina. I love her so much. My mom don't play.
Shout out to Regina.
Yeah. I don't know what the question you asked. You were asking me something. I'm so sorry. I went on a tangent about that.
No, it's cool. That's what we like to get.
Yeah. Shout out to
This is not one of those podcasts where we just trying to get, hey, Erinn, how are you doing? What is it that you do?
I'm gonna get to it anyways, though, regardless. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a talk. You're gonna hear about me regardless, because I just love. I'm so grateful for my life and the people who influenced me. You know what I'm saying? Oh, PKs. That's what you asked me about.
PKs.
Oh, yeah. So I was very sheltered, like very, very sheltered. And then we didn't have like cable or anything. So like I would watch it at my friend's house and stuff. But my parents were like, nah, y'all don't need to be watching TV. Like we would get 1 hour of TV like during the week total. If we were all good, like all 3 of us had to be good. I have an older brother who's 18 months older than me and a little brother who's 3 months. So we're right after each other. But if we were good, we got 1 collective hour during the week. And on the weekend, we got 2 hours. But my parents' rule was we had to all agree on what we were going to watch. And so I have 2 brothers. So I just was always outnumbered. So it was like, whatever. So even now, like I don't watch TV. I listen to podcasts or like listen to books. Sometimes I watch YouTube. But I just am not like a big TV person because I never really got to choose anything, until I was like later on in life. And I had a stint where I was like, I guess making up for lost time, but it just wasn't something that was in me for a long time.
I wasn't really a big TV kid myself either. And I mean, that wasn't, I was always outside.
Yeah. Same.
You know, now outside was my TV.
Yeah.
That's where I learned everything.
Yeah.
Learned
I
a
love
little
being
bit too
outside,
much.
but my friends was talking about stuff that I was like, I ain't never heard of Zaboomafoo. So I couldn't like
dang.
wait till I went to their house, you know, to like catch up on and so that's another thing. Because I was so sheltered, I became a rapid learner. And then I'm really good at context clues and picking up on stuff. So I just need a couple of moments. Like if I can assess something for a moment, which is what really helps me in business and consulting. If I can be around something or in a city for just like an hour or two, I can really pick up on stuff. So yeah, I'm very sheltered. My mom didn't want me around stuff, listening to stuff, but again, they're pastors, so we're bouncing around to a bunch of people's houses. And my mom's not a controlling person. I think there was moments of her life where she was, especially when it came to our safety, but she wasn't telling her friends. Well, she would tell them like, they're not allowed to do these things, but she wasn't like, don't turn on this, don't do that, don't do that. But she would tell us, and she'd be like, guys gonna know if you do that thing you're not supposed to do, so I'm not even gonna tell them. So she had us scared, well, at least me. She had me scared straight because my mom could read me like a book for sure. But yeah, super sheltered. And so yeah, I got into everything because of that.
Okay, and leading up to getting into that everything in high school,
Yeah.
what was a young Erinn into? Like, what was her, her go-to thing that she just had to do growing up in high school?
I just wanted to be away from my parents. My parents were so strict. I did everything. I played basketball and I was really good at it. Like, so to my father's frustration, I didn't register for the NCAA stuff, and I had schools recruiting me, and I was like, I don't want to play basketball in college. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm full tilt. I'm either there or I'm not, right? So I grew up playing with my brothers, and, my godfather down the street from me was a basketball coach, so I'm growing up playing with boys. So I just ended up being, like, really good, and then I'm super competitive. So, yeah, so like that just brought a different thing out of me. My dad's a military man turned pastor, but also worked at the FAA. So like no emotion in my childhood. And then my mom is just a very high achiever, super intelligent woman, high school diploma, and then like worked her way up to upper level management at the Southern Bell, that turned into Bell South, that turned into AT&T. So it's just like, I just was cut differently from hard workers, but people who just have a lot of sense. So like for me, like, the cool part of basketball for me is there's like a lot of strategy and mental stuff around it. So, like I think, yeah, I just wanted to be good, so I was good, right? But yeah, I played basketball. I joined all the clubs, and part of that was curiosity. Like I did want to be away from my parents, but like I joined Spanish club because I wanted to be bilingual. I was in junior civitan, which was kind of like a civics thing, and we would have these meetings, and I really joined that because I wanted to get a different stole on my. I was like, they had a really cool one, and it was a small club, and I understood. I think before I could articulate it, the value of being an outlier. So it was all these like older white men who ran this club, and it was all these like Vineyard Vines white boys in the club, right? You know what I'm saying?
Marsh.
Like basically like Nashville frat boys before I knew what a Nashville frat boy was. And then like a couple of like really well-to-do girls, white girls. And I'm making these distinctions because like when I walked in the room, it was very noticeable.
Yeah, it's just like, a black dude in ag class.
With an ed class?
Agriculture
yeah.
class.
Well, yeah. I mean, black people farming just makes sense.
Well,
but I know I feel you.
Where I'm from, I was probably like the only black boy in ag class.
Oh wow! Okay, shout out to that.
But that was like by default because I had switched schools in like the middle of the year, and they really have anywhere for me to go, so they just stuck me in ag class.
Let me join this ag class.
I'm in here with these white boys that listen to Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yes, come on, CCR, come on, for sure.
Hey, but look, that gave me more diversity. I had more things to talk about.
Yes.
One of my good friends growing up, like in middle school, his name was David Duke.
Interesting.
If you know who David Duke is. But anyway.
Was he in that family?
No. His name was just David Duke.
Okay, for sure.
Coolest white boy ever. Introduced me to Green Day. Anyway.
Yeah, shout out to that. Okay, that's what I was on. I was definitely on like punk music. They were calling it emo back then, but like, I mean, they called it emo again recently, which I'm like, okay. But yeah, I
see, it
was.
would even back in my day. It was just like alternative music.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
all.
Like
Yeah.
alternative facts. That's how I saw it. But like I was big into punk music because I just wasn't into hip hop for some reason. I think because my brother was always buying like the mixtapes from the gas station and stuff, and it was like Jeezy, Gucci. Like I'm hearing all the, but it was like they were saying like, okay, my parents only let me listen to gospel music at home, right?
Okay.
But I also grew up listening to classical music. So like Rachmaninoff to this day is one of my favorite artists. You know what I'm saying? He's my probably like top 3 favorite composers. Tchaikovsky is like number 1 for me. But like I grew up listening to like Beethoven, Mozart, and like, you know what I'm saying? And just like really delving into like how sound was developed. Like I'm an audiophile for sure, but it's because I grew up listening to like these huge, long classical symphonies on vinyl, right? And then my dad was like playing Mahalia Jackson in his office, and I was just like listening to the purity of her voice. So like, then I'm getting in the car and it's Gucci. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's saying vile things about
Take
women.
my shirt off and never mind.
Yeah, and it's like you go from the radio, which is like Nelly, like I would only catch the radio occasionally, but they're bleeping everything out. You know what I'm saying? And then my brother has the mixtapes, and you know, like back when Titty Boy was running the South Side. So I'm like, what? And 3-6 Mafia, I remember just sitting in my brother's car plugging my ears because I'm like, this is wild. So that's kind of what I thought like all hip hop had to offer until like The Love Below. What is it? What's the other one that came out with that?
You're talking about
Speaker Box and The Love Below. When those came out, I remember being like, oh, this is so unique, right? And I was already like obviously like Miss Jackson, like I loved Andre's flow, but when that album or dual project, whatever came out, I was like, oh my God, Andre 3000 is like the greatest thing ever. I still feel that way. That's why I have, you know, the flying saucer, because the cover of Aquemini has a flying saucer in the corner. But yeah, so I was super sheltered, and it was, but I've always been like really pure. Like even now I'm super sensitive. So like I don't watch like horror stuff. I don't listen to crazy stuff because like I feel it so much internally. Like I'm very sensitive, and I care about people and I care about the world. I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, I'm just gonna separate this from that. I'm like, I just don't have to participate. I can exude that level of restraint, you know, because I want to remain pure, but I also don't want to be desensitized to the amount of harm that happens to people in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like people go to sleep watching Law and Order SVU, and I'm like, this is really happening in the world, you know? And I think as a woman too, like understanding the amount of my friends who have been abused and then like experiencing things on my own, it's just like, I just have a super sensitivity. I'm a nurturer. That's like, by nature, I'm such a nurturer, and because I care so much about people, I don't separate things. I'm like, these are all somebody's storyline, whether they're alive now or not. This is real life. Even if it's not exactly like this is representative of people's stories. So yeah, I think I've always just been pure like that, but I was super curious, got into a lot of interesting, wild shit for a while. And then, but my conscience has always been like, again, I'm like, I know God is watching, because my mom could read me in a way that I'm like, there's no way she should know this. And so that kept me straight. That's what kept me from really sneaking out of the house, is because I just would be like, man, my mom's just going to wake up and just know I'm climbing out the window. And I would be mortified, you know? So there were certain things that kept me out of harm's way. But really, as soon as I graduated and kind of like started doing my own thing, I hit the rave scene with the best of them. I was out there doing, yeah. I mean, I have lived life. I'm 35, and I like, man, when I die, I want Big G to say like, man, you did your big one, Erinn. Like you rang your life all the way out, right? Like I want to, and I'm not even saying it's always got to be like activity, because I'm slow. I'm very chill. I'll sit out in the sun for 2 hours every day, like most days during the summer. Like I be chilling, you know, but.
Hope not in Tennessee or Texas.
I mean, in both and in Atlanta, I be getting the vitamin D extra. But
right, I hope you have some
like
sunscreen,
I live life, and I've always been like that. I've always been like, I want to do the most.
Got you. So
literally,
you touched on it a little bit. I'm guessing after high school, was there no college for you in sight, or what was?
I never wanted to go to college.
Okay.
Like and the thing was, I went to a really good school. I went to a very unique school to where it's like all the athletes were also in AP classes. So I was like, it wasn't like jocks and cool kids. Like I used to always watch movies like that and be like, oh, that's funny. And then people were like, no, like people didn't get made fun of at your school. And I'm like, not really. Like I can remember some instances, but yeah, I just like, everybody was like, I want to go here. I want to go here. I want to go here. And I was like, I want to go to Duke, but I really wanted to go to Duke because I loved Coach K. I loved the Duke basketball team, and
people, will you look at? Oh my God, a Dookie on my path.
Yo, are you a
podcast?
UNC fan?
No.
Oh, okay. You're a Kentucky fan.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm not. It makes sense. I just like UNC is egregious, but
Miss Regina,
but Kentucky.
Can I get some holy water sprinkled?
Yeah. No, Kentucky makes sense. I'm not even knocking you. Like y'all have the less cool blue, but like shout out to Kentucky.
Wow.
Yeah, no, and then Coach K isn't even at Duke anymore, so I can't even really ride for Duke. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you can't spell Duke without UK, but anyway.
For sure. I mean, Kentucky makes sense. If Duke isn't in the tournament, when I used to watch college basketball, I'd go for UK. You know, like it's not a real rivalry if I can respect you after the fact. I don't respect UNC after the fact.
You gotta pick
it's an
side,
ugly
baby.
color.
You can't
yeah.
You gotta pick a side. You can't.
We're kind of cut from the same cloth, though.
No.
And the longevity of the players coming from Duke and UK in the league. Now, again, I don't watch sports really much anymore, but two of the best programs that have longevity was players in the league. So, like, I respect you. I'm not agreeing with you, but I respect you. It's not like you're a UNC fan.
I'm just saying, like,
you gotta respect the dynasty. That's like people who hate Alabama. Like, I'm not shouting Roll Tide anymore in my life because I don't have an allegiance to any of these institutions like I used to. But it's like, you can't disrespect the dynasty that is and was from, you know what I'm saying? Like Alabama, they just was like incredible.
This is true.
I respect you though. I get it.
I'll shake your hand. I might give you a donut after the show.
I mean, I get it. I'll take the donut too for sure.
Dookie.
Yeah, but I wanted to go to Duke because so like I think I've always known, again, before I could articulate it, that I love the South. Like I love the South. We have our own struggles, but I love the South. I like the weather. I like the temperament of the people. I like how I understand the culture so I can navigate it well, which is why like I live between here and Austin. People, when I moved up here, and I was like, it's the first time I've ever moved from Atlanta because I travel for a living and I never thought I would move. And when I thought about it like May 17th and then like July 5th, I moved, right? It was quick. So I felt like a lot of people were like, oh, why don't you go to LA or New York? And I was like, ew. Like, no, respect to LA and New York. What? Too cold. So like I loved UConn. I thought about going up there, but it was like too cold and too many gringos. You know what I'm saying? I knew at Duke there would still be the brethren. You know what I'm saying? So I got into Duke, right? So Duke is a hard school to get into, right? Like I was good at school. Like I was good without really trying. I didn't take books home or whatever. Like I used to always talk my teachers out of giving me, especially when I got into AP classes, I would talk them out of giving us tests and stuff like that. Like I just knew school was a method to the madness. Like school is what you're required to do to get to the next level. But I never wanted to go to college because I'm like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I determined that when I was 12, started my first business at 12, made $1,000 across 8 weeks. And then my mom shut me down. But like, I knew I didn't want to go to college. I just knew it was buying me time to figure out what my master business plan was. But ever since I was little, like all my passwords used to be like Forbes or like Forbes girl. Cause I knew I wanted to be in Forbes. Like I used to read Forbes
Fortune
when I was a
500.
kid. Yeah, no, for sure. And so like, I knew that I had to apply to college because it was the cultural standard of the like the people around me, especially the school system I was in, but also because my parents didn't have the privilege of like the ease of access to school. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so like I applied to a handful of schools, like Mercer. There was this school that had a really cool program. I feel like it was up here, but it was like, I think closer to Memphis. Anyways, yeah, I didn't want to go to school. And then when I didn't fill out the NCAA stuff and my dad found out, he was pissed. And then I got into Duke, full ride to Duke, right? But they didn't cover my housing. And my dad was like, why do you want to go there? Like, I thought you were going to take a basketball scholarship. And I was like, I'm smart. Why would I take a basketball scholarship? And he was like, what?
I feel like that's going to be me in a couple of years. But anyway, proceed.
Yeah, it's like, and shout out to the like sports parents. And this is before it was the big talk. I graduated from high school in 2007. Like, I'm 35. So it wasn't even a big talk, but in my head, I knew that I didn't want the NCAA to own me, because I'm like, if I decide in 2 or 3 years I don't want to play basketball, my entire life, scholarship, everything is in jeopardy. Yes. So I never filled out the paperwork
before
because
NIL. So you couldn't.
Well, but it wasn't even about me making money. It was autonomy. That's one of my highest values. I learned that in therapy some years ago. Like autonomy, me being able to choose what I want to do and then doing it is one of the highest values that I have, which is why I'm a good entrepreneur. So like I knew in high school, like in high school, middle school, all of that, no autonomy. I'm going to school because I have to legally and because my parents said I have to. I'm going to church because I have to. I'm doing these things because I have to. My being good at school was my get out of jail free card. I was just good at school because I'm like, oh, I can hack this. I can figure this out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So then when my dad was like, nah, you can't go to Duke. And I graduated like a week and a half after I turned 18. So, you know, you're filling out all this stuff in the spring, but my birthday's in May. So I was like, I still had to have a parent co-sign on any loans. And my dad was like, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, you don't have a college fund for me? He was like, no, you're the smart one. I thought you were going to take a scholarship. And I'm like, I have a full ride to Duke, which is $50K a year. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, right. What? Like, I'm like, I am the smart one. Like, and he meant like, take what you get. I've never been a take what I get you get person. I'm like, I'm gonna take what I want. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, on the subsidies, whatever, student housing first year is $10K a year, right? And so I'm like, oh, I could get a part-time job and figure that out. He was like, you don't need to get a job. You need to just focus on school. I'm like, bruh. You know what I'm saying? But it was just my dad's way of saying, like, I'm not letting you go to school. And so, like, that started a huge spiral. I was very angry at my father. I was stuck in my parents' house. They made me go to Georgia State. And that was the one thing from my junior and senior year. I was like, I'm cool if I go anywhere as long as it's not Georgia State, because anybody can get into Georgia State, which is true. It's the state school. It doesn't make it a bad school. I was very arrogant and foolish at that time. But it was like, I was like, if I can get into all of these private universities, all these really cool places, like I'm not going to Georgia State, which is like 20 minutes down the street. And so when my dad didn't pay for Duke and he kept saying no for my other schools, he wouldn't sign the paperwork. It was a whole thing. I was like, bet, I'm gonna go get my real estate license. So like a week after I graduated from high school, I went and got my real estate license. My parents were friends with brokers and they were like, oh, we'll pay for you to get your real estate license if you come work for us. You're such a go-getter. And I was like, bet. So I went and got my real estate license. Within like 2 months, I was selling my first house, sold another one. And this is like during the these were like HUD homes, because, you know, it was like 2007, 2008, the economy was like busted. And so like, you know, people were just buying these cheap homes. And so I'm like, probably like November, I just sold my second house. Still living with my parents because it's not a crazy amount of money. Buying a HUD home, especially because I'm working with a broker, they're taking half because I'm brand new. Like, and that's how, so like, you know, first home, we probably did like 10,000. So I got 5. Second home, it was like 7,000. So I got 3.5. So like $8.5 across 4 months is like nothing, right? But I was hyped because I never had a job. I was playing sport. I had worked at Kroger making like $5.25 an hour for a little while. But my mom was like, you're making no money. You should quit. Like, that's how bad it was. But so I'm making like real money. And then my dad was like, you know, you got to go to school, right? I was like, excuse me. I'm smart. Like that just kept me about, I'm like, I'm selling houses, and he just was like, you got to apply to school. And then damn near drove me down to Georgia State to apply in person. That shit was crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy. And him and my mom were both there, like over my shoulder at the computer at Georgia State. I don't know. I don't even think they do that anymore. Cause you can like, if you get into this, I don't know. It was weird. I was down there filling out the application and then they approved me. It was wild. I went to Georgia State for like a semester, the spring semester. And then I went to a theology school program just to piss my dad off. But it traveled, so I was like in Germany and Romania. I did a lot of shit. It was really cool, but yeah, no real degree because I didn't finish that program either.
So, just going back to your bio, where did artist management fall in place in between this time, and how did you get involved in music industry?
Yeah, so I was like, after frolicking around the world for a little bit and then not finishing that degree, I had to like pay for the program. And so I started working at Chick-fil-A, then I was working at Smoothie King, I was working at TJ Maxx. I had 3 jobs. My dad had kicked me out of the house, so I was living with my god brother and his sister and my god sister and just trying to pay rent or whatever. And then I was like, again, I'm smart. Like, why am I working this hard for money? And I was like, I love kids. Let me get on one of these like nanny.com, care.com. So I just like registered myself on those sites. And then I ended up getting hired as a nanny. And nannying is very similar to being an artist manager. It's like almost identical, And so
Boy, don't I know.
I was a nanny, and then my friends had like started this band. Like one of the guys that I was in the theology school program, like invited me to the shows like shortly after we graduated. And he was like, you got to come to our show. And I like pulled up, and it was some stuff that happened between them. But I basically got in a golf cart accident and lost like all the skin on this side of my face, lost a ton of hair. So I was stuck in the house for like 3 months. I couldn't come outside because I had lost skin down all the way down to my dermis. So I just had one more layer of skin till I hit like my skull. So I had to wait for it to like, I was wrapped up, but I had to wait to heal because they were like, I still have a little scar, but they're like, you'll have a really bad scar if you are exposed to like the sun. It was traumatic and interesting and fun in a way. But yeah, so the first time I'm out of the house, my friend is inviting me to this show, and I'm like, yeah, it's nighttime, I can go out. So I go, and I don't know if it's because I was cooped up in the house all day or because they were really just that amazing, but I was like, this is the best band I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, so then they were like, we have a show next week, you should come. And like, we went out to like a diner after, we're kicking it, chilling like 19, 20-year-olds do. And I pull up at their show the next week. My friend who had originally invited me already quit the band. He like, he was like, I don't really like working with them. Practice was annoying, whatever. He's an interesting person. So I pull up, and I kind of knew the lead singer because we went to high school together, but he graduated a year after me. I was into sports. He was like a thespian. So he was like acting and singing and doing like all that. So I kind of knew him, but I didn't really know him. And then, so they were like raffling tickets to a Falcons game at the top of their set. Like they got on stage and they're like, if you want a Falcons ticket, buy a raffle ticket. So after the show, I'm like, that show was crazy, but why were y'all raffling tickets at the top of the, like, cause I felt like as an experienced designer now, I know my bent is that curiosity, but I was like, I felt like it was the only uncool thing that they did that night. So I was like, why'd y'all do that? And he was like, oh, we're trying to like raise money to buy merch. And I was like, why don't y'all just form an LLC and write off all of your instruments? And he was like, what? Give me your phone number. So I just gave him my number because he was just like mind blown. But again, I started my first business at 12 and I had like 3 other businesses before I graduated from high school, just like hustling for money in between sports seasons. And so he got my phone number and he would text me every day. And I had like a lot of time freedom because I'm a nanny. So like I'm around the kids, but when they take naps, whatever. So he'd be like, asking me questions and I would just like send them back answers. So after like a week or 2, he was like, how do you know so much about the music industry? I'm like, I don't. I just Google it when you ask. So back then, Google is not what Google is now, where you can just do. It's like he would ask me and then I would go like 12 page. I would go to the end of the Google pages.
Wow.
And then I would like.
That's a lot of O's.
Like literally, I would go through every page and I would read as many articles as were helpful. I used to listen to podcasts on the RSS feed on websites. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm an OG podcast podcast listener, like 2011, 2012. So I would just go listen to stuff. I'd be on YouTube. I'd be on Ask Jeeves. You remember Ask Jeeves? I would be, yeah. And Ask Jeeves was useless. It was not like what we have now. But I would get a few things here and there. And so he was like, what? He was like, well, let's just get together every weekend when you're off and go to the library and bookstores, and we'll just look at books and we'll Google stuff together. And so lead singer rocked with me. The other band members were like, why do you keep bringing her around type vibes, you know? Within probably like 6 or 7 months of me 5 months of me working with them, I convinced them all to go to a music conference and to showcase at the conference. At that conference was Kevin Lyman, who is the founder of Mayhem Festival and Warped Tour. So like the big punk festival and tours, and then like the hardcore festival and tour. And so I had just spent months studying him, watching every single interview he had on the internet, literally all of them, read every vlog post, all the things. And so we paid for the guys to showcase, and we were blessed. This wasn't like a BS podcast, or not podcast. It wasn't like a BS showcase for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was like real. Like they gave you 3 songs. They had the panelists, and so we paid. I talked to Kevin during the day during the panels, and then I was like, hey, they're gonna play tonight, and he was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna pull up. And so then the band was on stage about to play, and this was in a venue called the Masquerade in Atlanta. So there's Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory. It was 3 different rooms. So they had my band in Purgatory, but the last band was in Hell. So they would just go back and forth, so the changeover was seamless. So Kevin was the hot guy, so all the bands were around him in between all the sets. So they're like, we're about to go. Can you bring Kevin in here? And I'm like, no, he'll hear y'all are playing, and then he'll come. And the lead singer looked at me. He was like, how will he know it's us? In that moment, I was like, this is my moment. I got to go do the thing, you know? So I'm like walking, I'm like not as confident as I am now. I was very timid. I walk over to the other venue space. It's like a gang of people just standing around him, trying to talk to him. I'm a black chick in the midst of a group of like a lot of white rock bands. And I'm like, excuse me, like trying to weave in between. And I just get to the back of him. This is literally like my Eminem moment. My palms are sweaty. I really felt like I was about to throw up, because I'm like asking and they didn't want to move. Like you could cut the tension with a knife. Like they're like, why is she coming? No, I'm next. But I was bold enough to be like, y'all folk need to move. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like,
she hit him with,
excuse me. And I wasn't even
y'all
rude.
folk need, I shout.
But you know, it's like most people aren't as confident at, like, you know, like you know how they say Twitter fingers. A lot of people like to talk spicy, or they try to act like they may shoot you a look, but most people aren't really going to be bold enough to be like, nah. Like, and if you are, shout out to you, 10 toes down. Like, I'm going to have more grit than you, but like, so most people were moving, but they were shooting me looks. So I had to get over myself in that moment. And then I just tapped him on the shoulder. I couldn't get to the front of him because people was like stonewalling me. So, and I had been going to hardcore shows at that point. Like Under Oath was one of my favorite bands. And, you know, like folks are doing the Wall of Death. I don't know if you know anything about the hardcore scene in music. So it's like, it's already kind of like it's like a thuggish mentality.
Aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive. Yeah. Not quite like skinheads or juggalos, but like I was a part of like very much the underground hardcore scene in Atlanta, right? So it was like I wasn't like, nah, don't, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't precious by any means, but I definitely was intimidated by the looks. So I tap him on the shoulder and I'm like, hey, Kevin, my band is about to play. And he looks at me. Again, we had established rapport because I made it a point to sit directly in front of him. I talked to him after his panel. I told him to come see my band, whatever. So he looks at me. He said, oh, bet, let's go. And follows me into the room with them. So, of course, what happens, that room of 100 people that are standing around him follows me into the smallest room in the venue that could only hold like 115, 120. So now the room's packed for my band. And Kevin Lyman standing in the front of the stage. I mean, this has been a long story already, but basically after the second song, they get 3, he walked up, he's saying something, he looked like he was mad. None of us could hear him except for the lead singer. I didn't know what was going on. They killed it. I remember all the hair stand up on like the last song that they did on Back of My Neck, whatever. They get off stage, we all walk backstage. I'm like, yo, what did he say to you? Like, I felt some type of way. He was like, he said, I'm going to put you on the whole Warped Tour, but you got to play this last song like it's the last effing song of your life. Same thing as me. The drummer couldn't hear him because he has his in-ears in. He's sitting at the drum cage. The guitarist is like, what's going on? And he was like, Kevin had been drinking. So I wouldn't say he was drunk, but he was kind of like animated.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so then like they killed it, and he came backstage right after the lead singer's telling me this. He walks backstage. He's like, "Who's y'all's manager?" And they all looked at me and said, "She is." After denying me for months, after like we've been selling out shows, throwing events, doing all sorts of cool stuff. They're like, "She is." And he was like, "Okay, here's my email. Email me on Monday. I'm putting you on Warped Tour." It was September. Warped Tour started in June. So across the next 9 months, I got baptized in confusion and like drug through the music industry rapidly and learned a ton, and we ended up on Warped Tour. So that's how I got into the music industry.
Oh wow, what a dope story, man.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You know, some people, it takes years and years to get that big break, and it's like, you know,
I don't know if you call that a big break, because it was great, but
no, I mean, because
it was the slums.
But to go from one extreme to the next,
for sure.
going,
To be on tour. Yeah.
like that doesn't
And that
happen.
was like 9 months into me working with them that we ended up getting that. You're right. It was
Yeah.
Now it's been a bumpy road since then. Even Warped Tour, we almost like day 3, our van broke down, and he was like, "Just go home and y'all can play the 13 dates." And we're like, "No, you booked us for 42 dates." You know, so it was a lot. We had to go through a lot, but I grew so rapidly. It was just like, pound for pound, really eating the pavement.
So how were you absorbing all this information that's flying at you at warp speed? Look what I did there.
I see you.
At warp speed during this time, because you're literally going from one extreme to the next. You in Atlanta around.
No, like nannying is the same as taking care of a band.
When I say one extreme, I'm saying like from you're booking shows, you're doing all the groundwork, to now you're on tour.
Yeah, it's different.
And everything is kind of, it's not catered to you, but you have...
No, we were driving a 1989 Ford Econoline from Atlanta to Utah. It was not, that's what I'm saying. It was the slums. That was the first date of tour. And you have to do a rehearsal date because Warped Tour is massive, and we were the smallest band on the tour. In fact, everybody hated us because they were like, "Who are y'all? How'd y'all get on this tour?" Favor. When I tell you, God was really looking out for us, and it was just like right place, right time. And I really feel like I was just so bent in, it just positioned us properly, right? But it's like, no, it was the slums. Like the van started breaking down when we hit Nashville. That's 4 hours from Atlanta, and we had to get to Utah. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was like that, and it's a 42-date tour across 3 months, and we were playing. Yeah, it was wild. So no, it wasn't handed to us. Now catering was amazing. Like they had catering for us, but we had to sell our own merch. We had to drive our own van. It wasn't like they put us on a bus or anything like that. So I was like driving, and then I hated to sleep when the guys would drive because I felt like they were reckless. So then I wasn't sleeping, and then I was delirious. I started seeing things, like hallucinating, you know what I'm saying, like from being sleep deprived. We got to Colorado and we almost hit a moose. And so like meese, whatever moose is, they're way bigger than you expect. I know like videos started recently going viral and people were like, what? Like they're like dinosaurs. They're massive. And we were in the mountains, and like, so yeah, I've experienced, yes, literally. I've experienced just some wild stuff, but my favorite thing my entire life, all of my life, to do is learn. So it's just like, it just was fascinating and interesting. And I was 22 on tour with one of my friends and then a group of guys who hated me but needed me. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was just like a really cool, unique experience. I was seeing most of America because we're driving across it. I'm meeting new people every day. I'm learning about all sorts of different regionalities and culture, temperatures. I'm like on tour with bands that I listen to, you know what I'm saying? And then like really seeing like different levels of microaggression. I was seeing how people were using me. They were filming this Fuse documentary about Warped Tour. And so like they brought me in on some scenes several times that I thought they were really trying to show me love or help me out. Like, and they were just filming scenes, you know what I'm saying? But like, I was one of 3 Black people on on the business side on the tour, and the only one managing one of the bands. The other 2 were like working with the production folks. So it was like my lead singer and my drummer were Black. There were other Black band members on the tour, but it was like it was 1,000 of us. We traveled in a huge caravan of buses because they build the stages and they break them down. So it's like all these semis. It's like we travel with the medical crew. It's like a huge, shout out to Warped Tour. You could watch, they have documentaries online. It was a massive undertaking. But yeah, it was just like, I learned so much about myself, but I was really so focused on taking care of the guys. And yeah, it was really unique. I learned how to negotiate. I really learned how to believe in myself. I'm saying, and that's when I knew like problem solving was like a skill for me. Like when our van broke down, we were in Vegas. We had 48 hours to our next date, and Kevin was like, "I'll just fly you home. Don't worry about it." Like, because we were too young to rent a car. None of us could rent a car. Kevin tried to rent a car for us. He was a solid dude, but he couldn't because they make you rent it and have the credit card. You know what I'm saying? The whole thing. We were trying to rent a van for the entirety of a tour for 3 months. They weren't flying for that. So yeah, it worked out. We figured it out. I was up all night, just really walking down the Vegas Strip, pacing, trying to figure stuff out. The first time I was ever in Vegas, it was just like wild situation. But yeah, like God is good, and we figured it out. And it's like I cut my teeth and learned a ton. And then the next year, one of the brands like really rocked with me, so they brought me out to be the assistant tour manager for their brand. So I got paid to come out on the tour. And the next year, my band didn't get booked for it. So yeah,
wow. Now look at that. Look at God. Look
yeah,
at
for
God.
sure, for sure.
So from this group, was there any other group that you managed, or any other artists that you managed after said group? I don't even know their name. We're not even.
Yeah, I mean, they were called the Silver Comet, and then we changed the name to the Sagas because we went out to Oakland and we were in this like music tech residency. But yeah, shout out to them. I think one of the lead singer is like a crew singer now, so he's traveling the world. Shout out to him. The other dude is a session musician, I think actually up here in Nashville, the bass player. I don't really know what happened to the other dudes. I think they're like married with kids. Shout out to them. Hope they're happy. But I'm really the only one who's like in the like more traditional music industry. But even for me now, I'd be like, I'm music adjacent. Like the industry wasn't satisfying enough for me. It didn't give me as nearly as much as I put into it, and it didn't take care of me. So like I consult in the music industry now, but I work in tech now. I make more money there. I consult. I do what I want, and I make money doing what I want. Do you know what I'm saying? But like music was cool, but it was trash. I managed a reggaeton and Afrobeat artist after that. Managed like a couple of hip hop artists. Then got into like Christian hip hop. Managed R&B artists, you know. So I've worked pop soul artists. I've worked with a lot of different artists. And then Build Your Own Dreams, when it first started, was a label, and we signed my first artist after my first like hip hop artist that I like really managed. Def Jam signed him and then dropped him. And when they dropped him, I was like, man, he has this whole project. Let's put it out ourselves. So we started Build Your Own Dreams as a label, but quickly realized that that's a diminishing return and doesn't really make you got to invest so much. And I was like, nah. So then we shifted it to like a creative agency. We did like marketing and strategy for artists and like full-on brand management, and then it became like a management firm. So we were like looking at our artists as like entities, not just artists. So we were doing like like all sorts of brand deals with like Instagram, Crown Royal, Reebok. We were like, your music is just a byproduct of your creativity. It's just one of the ways we can make money. So we were just exploiting all sorts of different ways for our artists to make money, but they didn't value it. It was a whole shit show. So, got out of that, but shout out to that.
Should have found dough down in Nashville. But anyway.
Nah, management is like, it's for the birds. Imagine me with all my expertise, all my relationships, all my know-how, having booked hella tours, being able to produce shows, owning a booking agency, negotiating brand deals, all this, and I'm making 20% net. And you just rolled over. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, respect to the craft of rapping, but it's like, you can throw a rock and hit a talented artist. Respect to all the artists, no disrespect. You're never going to find another me. And then me with my business partner, it's not just that I'm skilled, but I really care. Like, I really care about the holistic artist, not just about the exploitation of the music. Like, when we started Build Your Own Dreams, we had a fund just to send all of our artists to therapy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I care about people. I care about the byproduct. I care about you learning about your business. You know what I'm saying? No. It's like, I'm a business partner and an exemplary business partner, and I'm getting paid as a volunteer. Like, no, absolutely not. It's trash. It's a waste of my time.
Well, let's get into being in tech, being black in tech,
You know what I'm saying? Women in tech. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Black women. Yeah, let's talk about it, because I know that Austin is a big
It is.
tech city, and a lot of big companies are based out of Austin that involve tech. I'm sorry, and so just talk about your involvement in tech and how you got into it as an entrepreneur.
So, little known fact, but if you ever get around me, you'll know it for sure. I'm one of the most technologically challenged millennials you'll ever meet. Like, I just don't understand computers, and I don't try. I be like, I don't care. I don't know. Like, Canva, CapCut, all that. Everybody can just do those things. It's like they have a millennial gene, Gen Z gene, where it just, oh yeah, did it. For me, it takes me a really long time, and then I get frustrated and I don't want to do it, right? So I found a back door into tech, right? So the original technology that we ever had in the world, do you know what it is?
Educate me. Okay. So you engineering people now.
Not engineering people, but like the definition of technology. I'm going to read it to you just so nobody's like, yo, like that's a stretch, because it's real. You know what I'm saying? I'm big on connotation versus denotation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like what something actually means versus the inference of its meaning. So technology is the application of scientific knowledge to create tools, machines, or methods to solve problems, to meet needs, right? So the first ever technology was community, right? So like to solve your problem, to solve cavemen, whatever you think the evolutionary period was banding together, right? Like men being with women was technology, like an evolutionary technology, right? Because it's like, the woman is doing this, the man is doing this, right? Forming communities, living around water. That's original tech, right? Because it's leveraging understanding of science.
The man and woman was just cold and couldn't start a fire.
That's your problem.
And hey, I need some of your body heat.
Correct.
Why don't you come on over to my cave and we can just be warm together.
It's leveraging methods or knowledge to solve problems.
I'm just being.
So I'm saying that's like, no, it is. It seems like very like simple, but I believe, like one of my favorite books says God uses the simple things to confound the wise. Sometimes we try to overcomplicate things, and it's like, it's not that complicated. Like technology just means using your understanding to solve a problem. So like people think it has to deal with computers, but it doesn't. There's ed tech, education technology. There's all sorts of tech, right? And in the tech world, you just take the first 2 or 3 letters of a word, and then you add tech to the back of it, and now you have, there's like real estate technology. There's all these different things, but it's just leveraging and understanding to solve problems. So I started saying, when I realized I was going to get out of the music industry, I want to get into tech. I got to figure out what that looks like. I'm like, maybe I should get into tech sales, da 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 da. So me and my business partner with Build Your Own Dreams had another friend in Austin, and she was like, I just want to have like a social calendar for Black people, whatever. And basically the idea evolved into what we have now, which is where y'all at though. So it's a community technology, meaning that we're creating awareness and solving problems within the Black and Brown community in Austin through our network of community, right? And so we're helping to amplify restaurants. So if a restaurant is we're not Keith Lee yet, not quite the Keith Lee effect, but we're able to aggregate our audience.
Take a little bit of this.
Yeah, shout out to Keith Lee. He's changing lives for real.
I don't know about this this bread here. It's kind of hard. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So we're just leveraging our community and our understanding of business and marketing to create solutions. One, to help people find their people. That's our slogan, is find your people. So we're helping people find each other, but we're also helping them find resources, businesses, and helping businesses find their clientele, that type of thing. And then we're now starting to do a lot of strategy and consultation for, even like the city of Austin just tapped us. So we're going to start, hopefully, prayerfully, working with them really soon. But we're consulting for nonprofits and just different entities to help them understand culture and how they can serve the growing diaspora of people in Austin, because Austin is the #1 city for Black people in tech to move into right now, because the cost of living, there's no state tax. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many benefits. That's why Austin and Nashville are in competition to be the Silicon Valley of the South, which is why I'm in both cities. I'm learning, but yeah, that's how I got into tech. I was like frustrated with music, could see the end coming, and then got kicked out of the airplane at the highest altitude it could have ever been. It was like so rough for me, so rough. But I was already had my sights on that. And then we started building Where Y'all At Though, mid 23, launched it at the end of 2023. And at first we were just calling it like a community organization, or we were trying to figure out, because it was a for-profit company, but we were trying to figure out what to call it. And the more I started thinking, I'm like, oh, we're community technology. And there's a guy, and he's a business owner. He's an artist. He's super creative in Austin. His name is Chaka. He's incredible. But he did an interview with my business partner, Brandon, probably like 6 months ago. And he was like, community is the original technology. And that was so much validation for me, because I had been pitching it as like, we're a Comtech company, Comtech, and people are like, oh, communication technology. I'm like, no, community technology. And people take it, especially when you look at the tools that we use and how we aggregate our community and all the data we have. I'm not just saying it to be like, oh, that's different. Like, there are branding points that matter, but it also means something, right? I'm not BSing with that. But when he said that, I felt so validated, because that's how I felt. I'm like the first technology was community. And so we're leveraging that and building that and really doing cool things. So I don't know shit about computers, but I own a technology company.
Okay. Hey, look here. We're going to call it what it is. If it's technology, it's technology.
You feel me?
We can't, look.
And the fact that there's not a lot of people talking like this, so I get to own the narrative of what community technology looks like. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, now when people think of community technology, hopefully they think of Where Y'all At Though as it continues to grow. They're like, oh yeah, I have a Comtech company too. I'm like, perfect. Like, I would love to help people own that narrative, but like, they're gonna bring it back to us for sure.
Got you. And with moving to Nashville, there are a lot of opportunities to build community. That seems to be the running theme on this podcast, is bringing people on that are building communities. So how have you found your footing here in Nashville with, building community and exploring more of the Comtech, as we're going to say that the Erinn effect has, brought that to life?
I don't know if I came up with it, but I might have. You know what I'm saying? Because I did put it together on my own. But somebody else may be out there doing it. So when I decided to move to Nashville, I was just trying to get out of Atlanta. I've never wanted to leave Atlanta ever. Like I said, I travel for a living, but I wanted to get out of Atlanta just because I was going through hell. And I was like, oh, if I want to leave, I should leave. That's why it happened so fast. But I've been a community builder my whole life, so I'm never going anywhere where I don't have people, right? So that was one of the reasons I was able to move so fast, because I had some childhood friends here. Like, again, my parents are pastors. The church association that they're affiliated with is hubbed here in Nashville. So I've been coming back and forth to Nashville pretty much most of my childhood. And then when I got into the music industry and kind of like left my parents' house, I was coming up here because I was working with bands, you know what I'm saying? And then once I started working with artists who had like, all the DSPs are here, like, they don't have them in Atlanta. There's not a lot of infrastructure. There's music people, but not music business.
Now that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because the perception is opposite. Because everybody that are trying to so-called make it in music, especially Black people, they run to Atlanta. They run to Atlanta when in reality, you have BMI here, you have ASCAP, you got all of pretty much any sync,
Facts.
It's
There's
here.
Everything.
It's here
literally
in
throw
Nashville.
rock, and it's a thriving music business company.
So it's like, I get it because it looks sexy, but the real industry is here in Nashville.
Correct. Yeah, and Atlanta is dope. I love it. But like, there's this thing that you see, like, once you hit about $100,000, like, not necessarily, once you hit six figures, I won't say $100,000, but once you hit the lower six figures, there's not much room for you in Atlanta because there's not infrastructure. And in order to scale effectively, you have to have scaffolding. Right? Like, you have to have something to grab onto. And so that's why you see LVRN, which is, Summer Walker Black, all that. They have an office in Atlanta, but they're all in LA. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see Coach K in them. Again, they have an office in Atlanta, but they're in LA, they're in New York. It's like, once you get to now granted, they're way above six figures, but they're the outliers. But if you start to see, there's like, so I'm on the board of directors for, a music nonprofit called ATL Collective. And that's one of the big problems that we're trying to solve is how can we keep Atlanta's music people in Atlanta? Because if you're good at what you're doing and you keep going, if you don't just like, a lot of people start in the music industry or they make a little money and after 4 or 5 years they phase out. But if you're looking at career music people, they don't stay in Atlanta because there's not enough space. Like, it's good for learning and nurturing, and it's a great place to come back to. But if you're trying to like establish and burgeon, you got to go to another city, which is unfortunate. So for me, it's like, I had a rule when I was trying to decide where I wanted to go. I was like, I have to go to a city where I have people that I can cry with. Again, I'm like super sensitive, and like I was very much in a specific place in therapy where I was like healing from a lot of stuff. So I'm like, I need people that I can be really real with. I knew I had a handful of friends here who don't work in the music industry, and that's something important to me. I can't be around people who do the same thing. I don't want to talk about work all the time. I rarely want to talk about work. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, yeah, I need that. But then also an Atlanta mentality, and Nashville's undeniably going to win. So when I came up here, I was like, well, I know I have a lot of music connects. I should be cool. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do music wise. I knew I was kind of pivoting. And so then when I got up here and I found out within a couple of months that Nashville was trying to be the Silicon Valley of the South and how much money they were spending, I was like, bet. And then I wanted to try to get into country music a little bit. Like, I'd worked in a lot of genres. There's a lot of Black country artists. I grew up listening to country music. Do you know what I'm saying? I grew up right down the street from Zach Brown and his family. And then Zach Brown has an amphitheater, and he has a restaurant called Southern Ground, and he used to like hire my band. They used to have like a residency at his restaurant when it first opened in Sharpsburg, you know what I'm saying? So like, I just grew up like, you know what I'm saying? Not just Zach Brown. Zach Brown is like a newer example, but I grew up like really listening to country music, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy that you say that, because a guy from my hometown, shout out to Freddie P, is actually in country music, Black guy.
Yeah, it's a lot of us.
And who else that I know that works in? Shout out to Krista. Her husband has been on the podcast.
What's her last name?
Her last name was Hayes, but it's Hayes Pruitt now.
Okay, I don't think I know
they just recently got married, so shout out to them. But she's involved in, country music space or something to do with labels. That's all I know. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I moved up here, because I was like, this was before, like, I've been a fan of Shabuzi for a minute, but it's like, it was before Shabuzi and what's Buckle Bunny? What's her name? Before they started like really blowing. Yeah. But in 2022, I had a country music concept that was like, I called it Black Folk. I wanted it to be like, cause it's our genre, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I want to take that to Nashville. I want to throw it, cause I had a festival in Atlanta that was pretty successful. So I was like coming up here thinking I wanted to be a Black exec in country, but I didn't want to necessarily manage people. I wanted to start like, I thought it was actually going to happen a little slower than it did, but I didn't want us to be turned into a gimmick, which we are a lot of times. I think it's, in some ways it is right now, but I knew it was going to be a huge cash grab towards Black artists, and I wanted to be a part of like protecting some of the integrity of the art form, but also like some of the artists with the education and stuff. But then as I started being up here, I'm like, some country stuff is going to be cool, but I want to get into the infrastructure side. I want to get into the government side. I want to get into the old white Nashville money that's here. You know what I'm saying? I want to get into the country clubs. So I started taking golf lessons when I first got up here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to, and I drink whiskey, I drink scotch. So it's like a lot of doors open, because I know how to have conversations around like some of the like more niche topics around money. Like, we don't have to talk about money, but like, I'm going to talk to you about my favorite scotch, and like, oh yeah, my brother smokes cigars, and do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm still finding my way, because business started picking up so well in Austin. I started spending a lot more time there. And so I thought I was going to move to Austin even like a month ago, like more like just full time, because I'm traveling with clients even still now. So it's like when I was off, I would only be here for a day or two, then I'd be in Austin. But even just in the last like month, stuff has been popping off here. I'm at the mayor. Shout out to Freddie. Like, I'm trying to meet him, like go into his office next week. But like, I've been meeting a lot of really like influential people in the city, and they're really rocking with what Where Y'all At Though is doing, which is why I'm like, oh, I want to bring that here, and just, so I'm figuring it out. But there's a lot of opportunity here, and I think people are pretty receptive to me here in Atlanta. Like, the way I look stands out to people here, but in Atlanta, this is like extra normal. Not like I'm like, I think I stand out in general. I think it's a lot more about my energy and my understanding of myself and my confidence. But in Nashville, I'm way more of an outlier. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like when I walk into a room looking like how I do, but then I can speak the language, especially of like tech and business, there's so many open doors. Whereas in Atlanta, it's like, if you sit down with me, you'll see that I'm different. But I felt like I was like starting to be underappreciated in Atlanta, even by people who knew me, because people who knew me were like, oh yeah, Erinn's just, yeah, she does a lot of stuff, right? And I'm like, yo, like this cost, you know what I'm saying? And then people who don't know me are just like, oh yeah, I know somebody who manages too. You know, like when people oh, I'm a manager, I'm like, beloved, it's no quotes around this one. Like, you know what I'm saying? So respectfully, I'm not shitting on anybody, but it's just like up here, it's like, when people say they do something, they're probably actually doing it, in my experience. Whereas in Atlanta, shout out to the city, it's full of finessers, but it's like you could kind of be doing something or you may really be doing something, but you got to vet it. And I just got tired of people being like, oh, you actually do that. I'm like, yo, I don't have anything to prove to you. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to the people that are really working out here.
Shout out to that.
Man, so I know we done covered a lot.
I know I've been talking a lot. Thank you for giving me space.
Hey,
been talking my ass off. This is probably your longest episode ever.
Nah, I got some talkers now.
Okay, for sure.
I done had some talkers.
I hope you're not bored.
No, come on now. I love what I do, so I can never get
good
bored.
at it. You making me feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? I'm back to cursing. Sorry, Mom.
Hey, I'm sorry, Regina. I tried.
Yeah, it's not you. It's me. She knows.
But anyway,
she gonna be praying for me.
We got a segment on Donuts with Doe that I call Doe's Half a Dozen.
Okay, we gonna eat?
Well, we gonna eat
okay,
donuts.
For sure.
Just hold on.
I like donuts.
But Doe's Half a Dozen is where I just pick a random category. And maybe based upon what we talked about during the podcast or just anything that I come up with. And it's where you give me your top 6 or your half a dozen of this category.
I like that because when people say favorite, I can't choose a favorite. So top 6 is cool.
Yeah, top 6 of your half a dozen. We talked about a lot here.
We did. Covered the gambit.
Let's see. Give me your top 6 or your half a dozen. Golly.
Michael Jordan.
Nah.
Michael Jordan.
Okay. Since you were.
No, I'm joking. I don't even really be tapped into NBA or college right now. So if you ask me anything right now, I wouldn't even know.
Okay. So we'll keep it
Muggsy
light.
Shaq.
We'll keep it light since you grew up a PK.
Yeah.
And you grew up around gospel music.
Oh, for sure. Come on.
Give me your top 6 gospel songs.
Songs? Oh, I thought you were artists.
Well, okay. We'll since you wanted to go with artists,
that'd be easier because like 6. Remembering titles is hard for me, and because I'm an album listener, so I'll just hit play and listen through. So I still don't know titles to some songs.
Oh wow.
Fred Hammond is at the top for me. Love Fred Hammond, not just because of his voice, but his arrangements are incredible. So like Fred Hammond. For sure. Number 1, if I'm thinking about it. Man, this is tough. Okay, so like John P. Key, I think because my dad used to bump him all the time, and I saw John P. Key at the D.O.U.G.H convocation last year. One of my clients got asked to come sing during the Midnight Miracle. I don't know anything about D.O.U.G.H churches except for they always have dope bands. So I was like thrown in, and I was like, what is convocation? What is the Midnight Mass? And it's like literally they have a midnight gospel concert, but it's D.O.U.G.H, so it started at like 1 a.m.
I know a little bit about it.
Yeah, Joy was wild. I've like church people getting. It was like 1:30 when my client went on, and she was early, and it was wild. Anyways, the Clark sisters for sure. What harmonies out the wazoo, and I love it when their mom, Maddie Moss Clark. You know, come on, wild. If it's Clark sisters for sure.
I think there's 4.
Yeah. Is it like older gospel singers or just anybody?
Matter. It could be anybody. It could be
even so like currently right now, D.O.E. she is like a revelation. I heard her on I was like making an R&B playlist and they recommended one of her songs. So when I first heard her, I didn't know she was a gospel artist because she has just like really amazing uplifting music, but it just like she's just an incredible singer. And then like a year later I was at the Stellar Awards and they announced her on stage. I'm like, oh, she's a gospel artist, but sometimes I'll have R&B people come to the Stellars and then she comes out with her guitar. She's left-handed, but she's playing a right-handed guitar upside down. So I immediately was like, oh, this chick is different. And she can sing. She's my friend now. We're like real friends. I love her to death. She's incredible. But I'm not just saying this because she's my friend, because I don't do that. I'm like, oh, beloved, that's cool that you like to do that. You know, like, but she's like incredible. I think that she will be somebody that people hear about for forever and a day. But like D.O.U.G.H, incredible. And then there's this new kid. He's from the UK. His name is Sunday, S-O-N, and then D-A-E.
Is that the cat that he's been releasing these
like on Instagram?
Yeah.
No, not him, because he's a like a rapper.
Okay,
no, the
him.
guy I'm talking about, he sings.
Okay.
Like really sings. I don't know. There's a called out music. There's a lot of new people that I'm really getting into, but I don't know if you would consider it gospel or more like R&B worship. I don't really know. I don't get into like subgenres, but yeah, like D.O.U.G.H for sure right now. And then I don't know, there's just so many. I mean, moving on with the Clark sisters, Kiki Sheared was like one of the first albums I ever bought myself. But yeah, Tasha Cobbs is super dope. Incredible range.
She's trying to give us a whole dozen.
No, yeah, I was trying to figure out the last 6 because like the 5 are tight for me. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many good ones. But yeah, shout out to gospel music.
What's the last one?
So I was thinking Kim Burrell because she's like blown my mind with the way that she can do a run, and she was also at the midnight mass. But I don't know, because I like in my head, there's not like everybody I said immediately a song started playing in my head. You know, she's not one who a song started playing. I just started hearing runs. Oh, CeCe Winans.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. CeCe, even back in the day, BB and CeCe, if we'd taken the two, that would round out my top 6 for sure. Okay. Yeah.
And there you have
Shout out to the National Natives.
We got another those half a dozen with Erinn Knight here.
That was dope. Thank you.
So before we get out of here, you got to tell us what's next and what's coming up and where can we find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm Erinn with 2 N's, Erinn. I say that my mom knew I was going to be doubly awesome, so she gave me an extra N. And I just been saying that for years. And then my mom was like actually at like a panel or something I was speaking at, and she heard that and just busted out laughing. And then somebody just looked at me like, sounds like that's the first time she's ever heard it. And I'm like, it is. Like, it's just something I say for people to remember me, but I'm Erinn with 2 N's. So I'm the Erinn Affect on everything, Affect. And I know people are going to be like, it's supposed to be effect, but English is a made up language. If Shakespeare can make up words, if Lil Wayne can make up words, Erinn Knight can bend words to fit. But I like tea, like sweet tea. I like green tea. I feel like I'm like tea. I'm soothing, but I can be sweet. I can give you energy. I can calm you down. So the Erinn with 2 N's, Affect on everything. What's coming next for me? So I Build Your Own Dreams, which is my creative agency. We do a lot of consulting there. Where y'all at, though, is the Comtech company in Austin. Hopefully it's coming to Nashville soon. And then I just started a media company. It's called The Belief Advantage. And so you are what you believe. And so the number one question that I get asked is, what do you do? And so I have my first show is like, that's the offering is, what do you do? It's just kind of my creative director following me around through, like, we're in LA in one episode, we're in Austin in another, we're about to film one in Atlanta, just kind of moving around with me. But the purpose is, I never had a me for me. When I was in my 20s kind of bobbing around, everybody was like, do this, and it'll end up in this result. I never believed them, but I also felt like if it ends up in that result, I won't be happy because it was already predicted. Like, I like a little bit of the mystery, but I like a lot of the like control and the ability to like project what I want to see.
Is it safe to say that Erinn colors outside of the lines?
No, I'm not coloring.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
She painting.
I could be. But like, what's the extraterrestrial version of painting? You know what I'm saying?
Abduction. I don't
No,
know.
whoa, that sounds crazy. Absolutely not. I'm not doing any of that. But yeah, it's just like there are no lines. We're not even coloring. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like I don't believe in like the finite things. I think there are some things that are finite, but I think that we limit ourselves by only ascribing to what's been told to us or what we've experienced. The Build Your Own Dreams logo is a cloud, and people are like, oh yeah, the sky's the limit. I'm like, no, I can see the sky. That's where I start. Right? Like I start where if I can see it, that's just where I begin. And so I needed I needed somebody who was like really living in their passion and in their purpose and could be like, yo, you're going to figure it out. Like, don't worry about it. But also just like enjoying life and freeballing. I felt like when I was younger, 35-year-olds were like serious and everybody had kids and it was just like they were working on their retirement plan and it was like serious. And I'm just like, I just be kicking it.
My son would probably say that I'm very serious. My daddy doesn't joke around. He doesn't like to play.
You have a podcast. You're out here like enjoying things and creating stuff and putting it out into the world.
He just think I'm just the boringest.
Nah, and you rap like he'll figure it out later. He'll be inspired. It takes kids a while to catch up.
That's why he be in my closet trying to steal.
Come on. I'll say I keep looking at your shoes. You are fresh. Like you know what I'm saying. And you doing your thing. But yeah, so the Belief Advantage is really just me having. I'm gonna be releasing multiple episodics. First, they'll be focused on me, but then eventually, I just want to swing them over to. I am the byproduct of my community, and so all the people in my life. There's been so many people that poured into me. I've experienced so much, and that wealth of community and knowledge has allowed me to be the person. I'm fully free, and I'm out here living my dream like every day, and then reinventing it as I do. And so I want to be me for me, but like I'm thinking of 20-something-year-old Erinn. I'm thinking of Gen Zers right now who won't have access to a retirement or won't, who live on social media but don't know what they want to do, but really need to be encouraged to try some different shit and not feel like everything is a pass or fail. You know what I'm saying? Who need to get a little bit of chutzpah to be like, yo, chill, but also you could grind. You're young and you have energy. What are we doing right now? And I think a lot of times when it comes in their language or comes from somebody who's really living authentically from it, but also not like their parent. Like my favorite thing I've ever become was an auntie. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm Auntie E. Like I love my nieces and nephews, but even before I had them, people were calling me Auntie E. And so like I just want to be the big auntie, like to like show you love and just kind of lead you. So that's what the Belief Advantage is. It's my love letter to myself, to my younger self, but hopefully it helps future generations and shapes the world in a different way.
And what's crazy is one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because I wanted to show my son that there's all types of people in this world that do things that you don't know about.
Yeah.
That look like you.
Yep.
That you can learn from their stories and you can figure your own path.
I love that.
Just by being around them. So you're
a great dad. No, I'm being serious. That's super cool.
But that was one of the whole reasons why I started this podcast, just to show him like, look, if you want to hold a camera, I know somebody that is a cameraman for the Memphis Grizzlies that works for Georgia Tech.
Wow.
So you could do that. If you want to be in front of the camera, I got people that are interviewers, like my guy Marcel Williams out in LA. So it started as something pure, and that's what we're going with.
I love that.
And before I just go into a whole spiel, if you're looking for me, for D.O.U.G.H, you can find me at Donuts with D.O.U.G.H on all social media. If you want to just listen to some music of mine, you just...
I gotta check it out.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at I am D.O.U.G.H, but we're rebranding a little bit, so it's not much going on that page right now. But we'll get back to it.
You got links to your music on there, though?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. On the way home, I'm gonna be listening to a little bit of it.
And if you want to, check out the home, the hub, and spread the positive on all social media. And shout out to my guy Trent over there on the boards.
Killing it. Shout out to you, Trent.
And Erinn, it's been a pleasure.
Man, thank you so
getting
much
to know you,
for letting
know
me
your
talk my
story.
shit for a while. I
And,
appreciate you. This is great.
Just giving us your journey
For sure.
and where it all started.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's been another episode of Donuts with Do, and you can catch us coming soon to donutswithdo.com. Yeah. And like that, we out.
Fire. Thank y'all.